David Suzuki, thank you so much for joining me on UpFront.
My pleasure to be here.
A new report by the United Nations has warned that we are nowhere near our target of limiting rising temperatures to 1.5 degrees Celsius by the end of the century. In fact, the UN said current commitments from governments are on track to increase emissions by 10.6% over 20 years. Why are governments so apathetic when it comes to tackling what is arguably the most dangerous crisis of our time?
We're too smart for our own good. We've created institutions. You know, we're one species. If you look at the nerves and the sense organs and our brains from place to place, they're all the same because we're one species. But we've created all of these institutions, human constructs, religion, economics, politics, legal systems. All of these are human-oriented and human-based. We think we're at the top of the heap and everything is out there for us. Well, right from the beginning, then, we're destined to fail to grapple with it, because you've got the rich countries and the poor countries, you've got resource-rich countries and those that don't. They're all arguing about this one common crisis, which is that we've loaded the atmosphere with too much greenhouse gas, and we're trying to deal with it through our own national interests, and it just won't work. We've got to re-green the planet because it's all the green things that remove carbon from the atmosphere and give us oxygen, by the way. So if we don't come to grips with that the challenge, we know what the problem is, we know what the solution is, but we think we're so important. We've got to protect our economy, we've got to protect our national interests, and we'll just invent a technology that will get out of us. Look, we've had how many COP meetings on the atmosphere now? 26, 27? Who had the largest delegation there at that meeting? The fossil fuel industry. 500 official delegates at the COP26 meeting in Glasgow. What the hell? We know they're the cause. And they have to then do what we say we have to do to deal with it. But they're right in there, monkey wrenching the whole program. Do you think anything's going to happen now with the meeting in Egypt? Hell no. We're still arguing from the same point of national interest.
But David, what about some of the material impacts of climate change? Because the idea of saying that scientists predict this or the readings say that, for many people is still somewhat abstract, right? But when we look at something like global hunger, right? Climate change is the second leading cause of global hunger. Right now, the world has an unprecedented hunger crisis. There are more than 345 million people living in an acute state of food insecurity. This past year, we saw a devastating drought that killed 3 million livestock in Ethiopia and Kenya. And in Pakistan, over 4 million acres of farmland were destroyed in floods. I mean, this stuff is viewable and seeable. It's something that people can feel and understand, and yet we're still not responding, as you point out. Researchers are saying the rise in global temperatures is inevitable, and we'll reach that 1.5 Celsius increase by around 2033. If all this happens, what does the world look like at that point? And will that be enough to motivate people to make change?
Look, the media now are just reporting the unalterable truth that climate change has kicked in and we're in trouble. But where the heck was the media back when environmentalists were saying climate change is real? You know, in 1959,
were they ignoring it?
Of course the media were ignoring it. One is who owns a great deal of the media, at least in North America. It's people like Rupert Murdoch. They have an agenda, and that influences, just look at Fox News and see the kind of agenda and priorities they have. And truth certainly is not one of them. You bend all of that. But more important than that, the media look at things in bits and pieces, and it's all about today's news. And what we report today is yesterday is today's old news. So constantly, and especially with 24-hour news channels now, constantly churning through stuff. And the attitude is, oh, global warming, what the hell? That's old news. Those guys have been saying that for years. There's no serious discussion about this because it goes to the very root of who we are and how we are living. Look, in 1988, there was enough concern about climate change that a major conference was held in Toronto. There were over 40 countries represented there, including about 20 cabinet members. And at the end of that conference, they said in the press release, global warming represents a threat second only to all-out global nuclear war. And they called for a 20% reduction in 15 years. There it was. The science was in. The concern of governments around the world was in. The call for a concrete target was in. We did nothing to try to meet that target. And yet we could have avoided the whole issue if we had taken those steps.
But as you've just pointed out, David, we've had the prediction. We've been able to see the future, and we still ignored it. I'll give you another example. Back in 1959, the oil industry had just celebrated its 100th birthday, and with over 300 oil industry execs, government officials, scientists, everybody was present. Physicist Dr. Edward Teller was his name. He warned the crowd that a 10% increase in carbon dioxide in the atmosphere would be, quote, sufficient to melt the ice cap and submerge New York. All the coastal cities would be covered. They knew the dire effects of oil extraction all the way back then, 63 years ago, and they did nothing. Environmentalist Bill McKibben said that this was the most consequential cover-up in human history.
Absolutely.
How does this happen?
Absolutely.
How is this allowed to happen? This isn't a lack of foresight. We knew what was going to happen.
Well, exactly. And it's because of the clouding of that. We had foresight that got us ahead that was necessary for our survival. But now we've created things like corporations, and their sole reason for existence is to make money. The more money, the better. That's a measure of success. These are not stupid or evil people that are the head of corporations. Their job is to make money. They knew in 1965, Frank Eichard, the CEO or president of the American Petroleum Institute, said it. Burning coal, oil, and gas is warming the planet. And by the year 2000, if we continue this way, could very well be out of human control. They knew it. Exxon's own scientist, James Black, said in 1970, he said that our product is causing the planet to warm up. They've known. So what went on? Instead of saying, "Oh, we've got to start going for alternative energy. We're energy companies," they said, "No, we're oil companies, and we've got to keep making money." And so they threw that money into hiring people who used to work for the tobacco industry to say, "No, the evidence isn't in. This is natural, sunspots, all this garbage." No, they denied. And not only that, but they tried to shut down those people who were actually saying we've got to do something now. So it's money and profit have driven the future of corporate oil companies. And you see the result. 500 delegates at the Glasgow COP meeting were from the fossil fuel industry. What's going on? They're the cause of the problem, and they're there negotiating. That we should be telling them what they have to do, not negotiating.
Let me ask you about tactics. Let's talk a little bit about tactics, because recently we've seen some high-profile incidents where environmental activists have targeted famous artwork. For example, in the United Kingdom, activists with the Just Stop Oil movement threw cans of soup on a Van Gogh painting. Undoubtedly, this drew attention to climate change, but
it had glass. It had glass covering it up. What the hell's the problem? You just take a rag and wipe it off. It was a brilliant
But does it help?
thing.
I guess the question is, does it help, though? I mean, some people say this draws attention to the problem, which is the point of certain types of activism, the spectacle. Others say it hurts the efforts more than it helps the efforts. What do you say?
Why does it hurt the efforts? It at least makes people who think realize that, oh my God, they're jumping up and down because of this one action. And meanwhile, we oil the surface of the oceans. We're cutting forests down. We're doing all kinds of things. And nobody's jumping up and down anywhere near like throwing a bit of soup onto the glass of an art piece. What the heck? I mean, Man, that's nothing, and when are we going to have a serious conversation and start acting like this is the crisis it really is, and stop I mean, my God, if we're upset about that, this is what Extinction Rebellion has done in England, blockading roads or bridges, and man, people get peed off about that. But guess what? People have to think about that. Why are they doing this? Why are they going to jail about this? Don't you think maybe there's something we ought to consider?
Yeah, fair point. After 44 years of hosting the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation's The Nature of Things, which is a show about science and the wonders of the world, you've decided to move on. You stated something recently that I found interesting. You said, overall, I feel like a failure, being part of a movement that has failed. Those were chilling words to me. You say it failed. Is it too late to save the planet?
I have grandchildren. I can't say it's too late. But, this is another thing that really bothers me. I look at the media now, who are taking environmentalists seriously, and they give us time now to say how bad things are, the kind of things you said at the beginning of this interview. Terrible things are happening now, and we have no idea what's ahead. But now the interviewers always say at the end, well, are there any good things that are happening? Can you give us some hope? What the hell? We've been warning about the problem all these years. Now you want us to give you hope? It's still the same old, same old. We got to make money. Trees are an important resource. We've got to log them and cut them down. We need the energy from that river, dam it, and it's the same old, same old. So environmentalism, I don't consider this my personal failure. I mean, I'm just one person. But the movement that I'm a part of, we've failed to shift the whole perspective. And that's the fundamental failure that underlies the COP meetings. If we don't shift the focus away, where profit and national interest are irrelevant until we recognize stopping contributing to greenhouse gases, rewilding the planet is the highest priority. And then we say, how do we do this justly and equitably? Only then will we be able to do something serious. Get those fossil fuel companies out of that meeting. They've got no business being there.
David Suzuki, thank you so much for joining us on UpFront.
Thanks.